All right, Alex, we're coming into this episode. We're going to have a little bit of heavier topics to definitely to start us off. But we do want to get some of the lighter stuff, some of the cooler stuff out of the way prior to jumping into all of that. The big thing we want to talk about here, I kind of got by the thing I sent you on Twitter. It was MMA F Press, a parody account, posting that Michael Venom Page had signed with the UFC. That is not true at this very moment, but I think we're both pretty high believers that he's going to end up there.
Yeah, it's not official, but like there have been rumblings for a while now. Dana's talked about it several times. I feel like it probably is going to happen, and it'll happen pretty soon. So definitely worth talking about. Obviously, he's a big star. Um, one of the bigger, if not the biggest star outside of the UFC right now. I guess you have Francis Ngannou, who's
Well, Mighty Mouse.
but
Those are
like
the two.
and Mighty Mouse, yeah. But like one of the most well-known fighters, regardless, who is not a part of the UFC, and now thinking about becoming a fighter in the promotion. So it's cool, and I think there's a lot of good fights for him out there at welterweight. So listen, I'm
If
all for
we
it.
if we don't get Wonder Boy versus MVP,
Oh,
the world has gone to hell. That fight has to happen. I would actually, you know how cool that would be as Wonder Boy's retirement fight?
that would be insane. Isn't that what we have for isn't Wonder Boy supposed to fight Shavkat though right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. I don't think he got that stand and bang agreement with Shavkat, but we'll see, I guess. All right, so let's go ahead and let's. So it's definitely the biggest thing that should be focused on coming out of UFC 294. Um, Alexander Volkanovski, Alex the Great. Um, well, he lost very quick, but that's not
Yeah.
really what we want to focus on right now because at in his post-fight presser, he came out and said, "Hey, I've been dealing with a lot of mental health issues. I really felt like I needed to take this fight because I'm fighting my demons whenever I'm not in the octagon and when I'm not in camp." He has recently come out and said that he is willing to fight Ilya in January. The folks that love Volkanovski, please try to get him out of the cage for now, for a temporary to help get your mind right, because I don't know that letting grown men punch you and hit you and try to choke you unconscious is the best thing when you're going through that type of thing.
Yeah, well, he got slept by Islam, which is definitely not good. Not good for your brain. Not good for especially for someone who's going through that kind of stuff. And we've seen athletes because of severe damage to their head. Notably in football, where they become harmful to themselves, they become harmful to other people. And when you take a guy like Volkanovski, who I feel like is pretty universally beloved for his character and his personality, first and foremost, you're just hoping that he can get help and ends up being okay.
Oh God,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So that's, I mean, let all the other fighting stuff can play out later. His legacy is already cemented in that aspect. But at the end of the day, you just want to see him get the help that he needs and deserves. Um, because I don't want to see something happen to him where he takes like I'm trying to compare it to someone who's just gone completely off the rails. Like, I guess I hate to bring it back to football, but it's like Junior Seau.
Yeah.
Um, Junior Seau was, people revered him, looked up to him, and he was known as such a, compassionate and kind person towards others. And then once you kind of realize the things that he's been going through behind the scenes in his relationships, with his family and stuff like that in the later years of his life before he obviously ultimately killed himself, was you want to have that, you want to do what you can to kind of get in front of it before it gets to that point, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, you want to protect these guys because not only do they suffer far greater losses and far greater triumphs, three times, two times a year than we may ever experience, but they also every part of their life is under a microscope, and everything is so routine and cut down to a very jagged edge of how it's exactly supposed to be done. And that kind of wear and tear that you put on your body, plus that already happening in your mental space, that's just not a recipe for success. I will say, and I don't know how much longer you want to spend on the topic. I'm cool to move on after I say this. Volk deserves all the respect and admiration in the world, not only for being as good of a dude as he is, but also for being willing to come out and say something about that, because there's no telling how many UFC fighters are dealing with that same problem. Now, Dana should probably not allow him to fight in January. He should probably try to help Volk with resources, in regards to helping him with his mental health issues and kind of gaining more balance in his life, as opposed to fighting being his true escape from reality. But this is a conversation that needs to be had not only in the MMA, not only in the UFC, but across all sports, combat or not. Because that's a tough thing to deal with, and I'm proud for him that he was able to kind of enlighten everybody on that.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on, I'm with you 100% on you make a great point about him being one of, I mean, I can't remember another UFC fighter, at least when I've been watching the sport, kind of come out and be that forward about your struggles. And as someone myself who's been through the ringer and had those moments in life, like, it's you just appreciate someone else kind of going out and being brave enough to be vulnerable like that. So Volk, we love you. We hope you can get the help that you deserve, and after all that's figured out, see you back in the octagon.
Absolutely. And take the you time prior to the title time. We can wait. We love to see you in the octagon, but we want to see Volk. We don't want to see somebody who's fighting not just the other person in the octagon, but also fighting themselves. Okay, so I want to kind of remove Volk out of the equation for talking about the main event a little bit, because now knowing what we know, it does add those extra layers. But regardless of what was happening, for Islam to go in there and finish Volk in the first round, a tried and true, absolute gladiator in the octagon, I don't know how Islam wasn't number one in pound for pound.
I mean, I think it is at this point kind of just you want to hype up John Jones and what could be the final fight of his career, and in that regard, he does deserve his flowers. But with Islam, I don't want to take any credit away from him, because what he did in there simply hasn't been done before. One, just beating him in a dominant fashion, but finishing him so early in the fight when Volk is known for Volk is a 5-round warrior. That dude has some crazy cardio, crazy durability, crazy chin. And, even though he's going through the stuff that he is going through, like, he gave Islam such a tough test in their first meeting that, I mean, he could have come in at 50%. If you ask me, Volk goes in there at 50%, I'm like, well, he at least goes 5 rounds, you know?
Or at minimum like a fourth round, because maybe it's the gas tank that didn't always get replenished there. But yes, like championship rounds is where we're looking at minimum.
So I mean, yeah, Islam is so legit. I mean, we've known that. We've known Islam's legit, but God, that just that adds another layer to his greatness for sure.
Well, and to put it in perspective, Alexander Volkanovski has been in how many minutes in the octagon with Max Holloway?
Yeah.
He has been in the cage for so long with one of, if not the best boxer, pound for pound, in the sport's history.
75, right? Because 3 full 5-round fights, 75 minutes.
Yep. 75 minutes in the octagon, and he did not get put to bed against that man. All Islam needed was, what, 3.5? 4?
Yeah.
And he had him out. That's unheard of stuff. That's mythical fighter. As much as we like to joke about that term, that is like, if it's ever actually meant anything, Islam Makhachev is a truly mythical fighter.
Well, the scary thing about, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
I didn't
but the
really have much.
scary thing about that is he didn't even do it with his bread and butter skill set.
No.
The guy is a wrestler through and through, and he head kicked the shit out of Volkanovski to win, which is like, that's terrifying. Terrifying.
Dude, with the way that kick cut him open, that puts out 99.9% of Volk, I think, just because of how brutal that kick was. Now, granted, 99.9% Volk wouldn't have put himself in that position, but yes, there's not, I don't know if there's a single human being in his weight class that can take that head kick and not get TKO'd.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
So
we saw it happen to my guy, and that wasn't even by Islam. That was by Gaethje.
Yeah.
And what Islam would do to Justin Gaethje, I know that's your guy too, but
it would be he would have a warrant out for his arrest in whatever state happened. Whatever state that fight happens, there is going to be a warrant out for Islam's arrest. That's how violent. But there's nobody. If Volk, and again, circling back to another one of your guys, Charlie Olives, that's going to be bad.
And I remember because we were in Twitter DMs. You sent me something about there was like 3 fights lined up, and it was all like the demons and all of like the perennial #1 contender guys, and it's like, are any of these really close? No is the answer, but God, Charles going down eventually when they fight again that's gonna be a tough pill to swallow for me again.
All right, so yes, just to bring a little bit more of background to that, it was Islam versus Charles, Hamzat versus Sean Strickland, and Ikram versus Paolo.
Yeah,
like just none of them.
It's all the Russian dudes.
You know what? Actually, I would like to stop talking about this until our hot take segment, which will be, we didn't present this off the top. Just as a quick little update as to what's going to happen here. We're going to have a segment at the end of this, kind of like where we normally do the drafts or whatever, where we're going to have 3 hot takes that we have each came up with. And then we're going to present them and just kind of try to discuss the rationale and kind of get the other guy's temp on it. But to circle back into this, yes, Islam Makhachev might not even have to sweat in a UFC fight until he inevitably chooses to retire. And that is a horrifying thought, because isn't he like 32?
Yeah.
Like he's still a young bull.
Speaking of the hot takes, it has to do a little bit with Islam. You'll see, but I'm excited for that. I would say that's my hottest take.
Okay, yeah.
Of the 3 that
I know which one's my hot take, or like my hottest take, and I think you'll kind of like it. The one that I don't think is my hottest take is the one that I think you'll hate.
Did you do it just to upset me?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, none of these were intentionally to upset you. I don't think you'll like any of them. But
there's one I was thinking about where I was like, do I throw this in there just to like get Jackson riled up?
You should have tossed it in as like a psych out.
I'll reveal it afterwards. I don't even know if I buy it though. So
okay, good. Well, that's reassuring at least. But okay, let's talk about this next fight, the co-main. Hamzat Chimaev loses in a 5-round fight to Kamaru.
Yes, or I think he loses in a 3-round fight to Kamaru, who doesn't take it on 12 days notice either.
Yeah, who wasn't just eating Fritos at the state fair before he got the call. I understand that Marty is Marty. Marty is one of the greatest fighters of all time. But I am rapidly losing confidence in Boris.
I disagree with that. I think Kamaru is just such a tough guy to deal with for anyone, even if it was on 12 days notice. And especially the way he looked in that first round, where he was completely dominating Kamaru on the ground, and that's the Kamaru Usman special is wrestling. And so maybe some of it was Hamzat was just bigger, but if you can manhandle someone with the caliber of Kamaru Usman like that, and I know 2 and 3 didn't have as much success, but still, I think I might not feel like he can beat some of the up and coming middleweights, but I think Sean Strickland he beats. I think even I don't know if when Izzy is coming back, but I think he will cause some serious issues for Izzy as well. I mean, we knew he was going to smoke Paulo if they fought. Like,
Yeah.
I still love Hamzat Chimaev to become the middleweight champion.
So I don't. I'm losing confidence because he's proving rather quickly that he does not have a championship caliber gas tank. Because the 2 fights we've seen him go into deep waters, or AKA anything past 5 minutes. Gilbert, who I think you could argue beat him, and Marty, who had about as close gets whenever you have 12 days notice, and drastically undersized relative to Hamza. I mean, it was night and day as far as the high weight speed. You get him not up against like Paolo, because as much as I love him, he is not a championship caliber fighter. But when you get him up against these guys, like, I'm starting to wonder that if Izzy can just survive the ground game for 5 minutes, then he might be able to just pick them apart. Same thing with Sean Strickland. Same thing with like these upper echelon guys. I just don't know that this Hamzat, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. Hamzat moving up in weight feels like it's going to end up being a negative for him, but he cannot keep making weight the step below. So like he's kind of one of them guys that just I don't feel like is going to have a natural weight class, which could inevitably kind of crush his possible championships, or even if he gets the belt, might not have all that long of a reign with it.
I guess for me, the rationale that I've always had is when Izzy and Kamaru were champions together, and there was all that talk about Kamaru moving up in weight, like trying to become a double champ, but he didn't want to fight Izzy. And that hypothetical for me, I always saw Kamaru winning that fight because of his elite wrestling ability. So I think when you look at that third round against for Hamzat against Kamaru, his gas tank looked better than it did against Gilbert. And I think some of that is because he's at 185, which is going to be easier on his body, and he's not going to be just as physically depleted as he was trying to make 170. But just to see that improvement in the third round, I draw some confidence from it. Obviously you're looking for him to get a finish in that fight, because especially against a guy like Usman, but I don't know. I there's nothing that he did in that fight that made me less high on his championship potential.
Yeah, I see. I just like his gas tank did improve, but it still didn't scream championship caliber to me. And assuming that they want to have him take that step up pretty soon, that's not because like other than so Izzy makes sense as the next title contender. Dricus makes sense as the next title contender. Hamzat, you got 3 options, at least in my mind. I don't think he's capable of getting past those 2 guys at this current stage. He would beat Dricus, don't get me wrong, but I just it feels kind of like he's not ready for that step. Like he should probably take a Paolo fight or a Cannonier fight or Whitaker. I think that we're still a step away from where he needs to be.
Dude, he beat Kamaru friggin' Usman.
I know.
He beat the Nigerian Nightmare. Like, what more can you ask for? Like, I
for him
feel like it's
for
I
him to
don't
beat
know.
somebody who doesn't look like a middle schooler in the cage off of 12 days notice, preferably.
Dude, Kamaru is built like a Greek god.
He is, but he's
He
also
is
built 5
big.
inches shorter.
Yeah, but like that doesn't necessarily
Did
matter.
you just comp yourself to Marty?
No, I was
Oh,
just saying he's jacked. I didn't
I
say
think
I look like him. What are you talking
I
about?
thought you said like me. I couldn't because I was talking and you were also speaking, and all I saw was this, and I thought you said like me. I was just like,
No,
what are you doing? Okay,
no.
let's get on to a somehow more controversial fight. Alex,
My
question.
God.
Question. What was the 22nd state to become a state in the United States?
The desert.
You are unfit to continue competing in this podcast. That's kind of what I imagined the Johnny Walker saga went like. Um, I understand that he didn't know where he was fighting, but it's Johnny Walker.
He's
He
just a crazy man.
I don't know that he's ever known where he's fighting. He is not pieced together, and I mean that in the best way possible. He's a little bit off kilter. Um, Also rushed the bejesus out of making that call.
Yeah, what the hell? You're supposed to like at least give the guy 5 minutes before you call it. That took one, maybe not even.
I think they hit like 130, and half of that was just the ref trying to get into the cage or the medical staff. But yeah, like that was just, I guess that guy was not working hourly. I guess he had a flat rate and decided he didn't want to work too hard because he called that wildly early, did not give Johnny Walker any time to recuperate. Previous to that, tried to come in and tell a fighter that he didn't get kicked in the nuts. Um,
Yeah, that was following that, through the first couple hours of the card was wild. That was insanity.
Dude, I don't know how Johnny kept it together and didn't hit it. Like when you have that much testosterone and that much adrenaline pumping through your veins, and this guy is like, no, you can't fight because you didn't know we're in the United Arab Emirates. It's like after a minute of time and where you probably can barely hear them because of the crowd, it's like I don't know how somebody didn't flip their lid over all that.
It's also crazy because he was talking to him in English, and I get that Johnny speaks English, but like,
It's not
God,
his
I feel
native
like in
tongue.
that situation, I'd like to hear my native language when I'm in that critical of a situation. I don't know how you have a Portuguese translator at least there with them, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and there had to be more because like I assume they had one on standby just in case he needed it for the interview. Like, surely they've got a bunch of just translators in the back hanging out. Get one out there. Like, yeah, you've got to make sure, absolutely sure, because now Johnny Walker, I mean, he has every right to like sue that guy because he didn't.
Probably cost him a check,
Yeah, it
a
cost him a check.
potentially very big check.
Yeah, well, and cost him what 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of training camp
Yeah.
just in a couple minutes. So, I mean, I feel like he could get after him for damages. Now, if he's part of some union agreement with the UFC, obviously not. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. But if that guy is an independent contractor, that I would be shocked if Johnny Walker doesn't at least consider the possibility of trying to get some of them damages back.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of how about the luck that Ankalaev has had his
No
last two
kidding.
fights?
Dude doesn't have to get any wear and tear and gets his dub checks. He gets his bonuses. It doesn't matter. He gets to roll on home with a little bit of extra money in his pocket for 5 minutes of work.
Yeah, he could have had a belt,
Yeah.
could have had another opportunity at the belt if he won this fight. Like that guy he has had a wild UFC career. And
Well,
really just a wild last two fights.
what's crazy is he could still be champ. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
be shocked if he's the next challenger, assuming Yuri isn't fully on track or whatever. But we haven't heard an update on him, so I don't know really what to expect with that.
Dude, Yuri's fighting Alex in 2 weeks.
Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Hold on. I meant Jamal. That's
I
on
was
me.
gonna say, what are you talking about,
We've had
dude?
so many injured light heavyweight champions recently that they all just have just kind of blended into
Yeah.
my head. I meant Jamal. I don't know why I said Yuri. Yes, Yuri obviously fighting Alex. Do we have an update on Jamal?
He tore his Achilles. I can't imagine he'll be back fighting until next summer at the earliest.
He
Because
should
that's
start working out with Aaron Rodgers'
Yeah, I
doctor.
was gonna say we need the Aaron Rodgers treatment on him. So
Yeah, he wouldn't even have to miss a camp date. Like he could just still be going. Um,
yeah, just ayahuasca and uh whatever procedure that they did. I saw a demonstration of the surgery on NFL Network. Totally forgot what it was called, but I
is it
think
like
that's
arthroscopic
how you
something?
heal Achilles, huh?
Is it like arthroscopic something?
No,
No.
I it was it
So
was
what they
something
do,
bridge, I think maybe. I
so
don't
they
know.
melt down DMT and they shoot it directly into the Achilles.
Into the Achilles.
And then it magically becomes a tree of life in your leg and just reheals itself. I'm pretty sure that's the medical assessment there. All right, this next fight, maybe the biggest winner in my head from this fight or from this card. Ikram came out looking like a monster.
I don't know if I'd consider him the biggest winner in this fight because this was another short notice opponent, and we already kind of knew that Ikram was really, really good. I would have liked to see him go up against Imavov, who's a ranked middleweight, and if he goes out and does what he did to Imavov, probably like that gives you top five consideration immediately. I don't know if he's going to be in that conversation yet just because of the level of opponent he faced, but he still looked really good.
Yeah. Well, my big thing is I think it introduced him to like the true subsection of fans that have to know who you are if you want to become a star. And he did that in such a dominant way. Because like up to this point, anybody that know him, outside of like the real hardcores, the first thing when you say his name, you're gonna be like, oh, the guy who was supposed to fight Paulo, but Paulo didn't go, or oh, he was supposed to fight Imavov, but Imavov's out, or whatever. Um, he just came out, did his thing, looked like an absolute killing machine, and left. And in a card that was really, really weirdly moving around. There wasn't very much, like strong takeaways that you could get, and I think Ikram got one.
Yeah, I think so too. There weren't the only strong takeaways I think you could, come up with from this card were Ikram and Islam probably,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Like,
mean, well, in Islam, you've got the tainted subsection of it. Even like it shouldn't be tainted towards Islam, but he just fought who was in the cage, but it's still going to be. Just naturally. So that's whenever you start to think about it, it gets kind of easy. At least it did for me, because whenever I was looking over the whole card, I was just like, I don't know that anybody won this weekend like Ikram did. So yeah, that was my big thing. I would also love to mention he would be on our Rising Stars draft if we redid it today.
oh, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I think when we did it, he hadn't fought in the UFC yet, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
he had one fight.
I think maybe he was signed and about to fight or something not to the level that we really knew him.
Yeah,
But
now we
yeah,
do.
yes,
We knew him before this with his first fight, but now it's like you said, should be more widespread for sure.
all hands on deck with Ikram. All right, the next fight we've got Saeed Nurmagomedov. They were kind of nut hugging him on commentary. Not gonna lie. We both talked about it where we were like, I don't know that he's championship caliber, but like he's good. He looked way closer to their assessment than he did ours, though.
Yeah, well, it was pretty funny. It's funny you said that because I saw on like Twitter and social media that DC was getting clowned for like, sucking off for lack of a better term. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, my mind's in the gutter.
No,
But
you're good.
um
I
you
did. I
know,
used the term nut hugging.
yeah. But he's maybe a little too much gassing up of the Russian fighters because he's gym mates with Habib and Islam, and I guess that just trickled down to everyone else fighting on the card as well. So it was funny you said that because I definitely noticed that, and it seems like a lot of other people noticed that. But not to take away from what Saeed did. That was probably the best performance I've seen him put on. I've seen a lot of his fights, and that was super dominant. And I don't think he's looked like that before, even in some of his other finish wins.
Yeah, that's maybe the first fight of his where in 6 months' time I'm gonna be like, oh, do you remember when he did that? Like it's the first real statement image that he's put in my mind. And then just the last thing, and then we can go to the next couple fights. I cannot wait for Daniel Cormier to grow one of these beards right here and then start wearing the sheik gear to fights, because that brother thinks he's Dagestani. All right, let's talk about Muhammad Mahayev, somebody who I'm starting to wonder if he would be on our Rising Stars draft if we redid it today.
I was gonna say, are you a little worried about that?
More than a little. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I think I had a really good draft, but I might have had a bust somewhere in there. Muhammad Mahayev might have been my bust. Now, that's not to say he can't be, a top 5 fighter in the weight class. But do I think he's still championship caliber? Can he get there? Yes. Am I certain he'll get there? No.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is he's still 23. Like, a lot of these athletes don't hit their prime until 29.
Right.
So he still has a lot of room to grow, but I'm with you in the fact that I don't know if he's everything that we have gassed him up for so long to be. You kind of saw signs of that in his last fight when he got stuck in that nasty leg lock with a guy who took the fight on short notice, or was it short notice or just his UFC debut? It was one of those two, I know for sure.
I thought it was both, but
and maybe it was, but
because usually with these high ranked guys that are super young and super talented, they just have to bring in some random person from whatever random organization they can. So I'm sure it was both.
But the thing with Tim Elliott is he's flyweight top 10 gatekeeper, and on the scorecards he was up. He was up 2-0 going into the third. All right, he was up 2-0 on two of the three. Yeah. He was up. So he was there for a split decision at least, if he didn't get submitted there. And he finished. Mahayev finished the fight, so you got to give credit to him for getting the win when he needed to. But the 12 minutes or so before that, just not a whole lot to be inspired by, for sure.
Yeah, not fulfilling his potential yet. I don't want to call curtains on his career or anything yet, but definitely need to see more from him moving forward. And then the last one, another guy I think I need to see more from, not really as dominant as I expected from Shara.
Yeah, well, the guy can't wrestle for shit. That's what we learned.
Yeah.
We learned that he is extremely dangerous as a striker. I mean, some of those kicks were disgusting.
Yes.
Disgusting. And that got me super excited, just watching him do that. But when Bruno Silva is kind of ragdolling you on the ground, that's not a good sign.
He's somehow the only Russian that does not have a ground game.
Seriously.
He was sick that day. He didn't go to class. But yeah, like that's not for this guy who has been heralded as like a potentially game-changing, promotion-changing fighter. That was not it. Like even as cool as a stand-up was, that cannot be the finished product.
And it wasn't like, oh, like his wrestling could use some work. It was, wow, this is a disaster.
It was like, wow, we just got him pulled straight from It's like putting Floyd Mayweather in an octagon.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, I don't know what's going on here. And you can't do that.
I guess part of that is just when he came from Thailand, and it's not like Thailand is known for being the land of the wrestlers. Like where he did all his competition is where it's Muay Thai. Right. Like it's extremely different. So it probably would have served him better if he spent some time fighting in Russia or even in like Brazil, or at least
Send them to the favelas.
or just somewhere where you can develop some sort of prowess when you're not striking. Like that was extremely concerning.
Yeah, go mess around in Midwest United States regional MMA scene for a little bit. Like, go spend a year in PFL. Go do something, because like
Yeah.
somewhere that you're going to get tested, because that was not pretty.
No.
Before we jump into the hot takes and all of the probably awful things that are going to come out of that, quickly make sure you like, subscribe, you follow us, you do whatever, you make sure you listen, you comment, spread it to your friends, whatever it is. Just make sure you're doing it because it doesn't cost you anything, helps us out a ton. We're trying to grow the channel, so please be a part of making that happen. Now, I explained this a little bit earlier. I will say, Alex, I think hot takes and hot take culture is ruining sports media as a whole. That said, I'm a big old hypocrite and I love participating. So we have decided, we had a draft that was in the works, but we're going to save that for a more grandiose setting. So what we've decided to do here, we just come up with our 3 best hot takes, worst hot takes, whatever criteria we chose on, and we're going to present those to each other and see what each other thinks about.
Yeah, I also enjoy giving hot takes, but when you talk about the hot take culture, I think part of the reason why it's ruined sports talk in general is the fact that the takes are largely, there's no basis for them.
Yeah.
There's no sort of evidence, or like it's really just childish arguments over like, and now you have all this social media like engagement farming where it's that sort of stuff and less rooted in, kind of facts and what we've seen. I don't know, just recently. So that's how I feel. I'm with you. I don't watch any sports talk shows anymore because I think they've just gone significantly downhill.
Yeah, Rich Eisen's the only guy I'll tune into.
Yeah, you're right. So hopefully we can, even if you don't agree with us on anything we say here, at least appreciate that there's been thought put into it, and
Yes.
we're not spewing bullshit to spew bullshit, I guess.
All right, Eisman, we didn't think to come up with a way to decide who starts this. So I have one that I think is a good starter. Like, I feel like it's a good way to ease it's going to require a little bit of math. But
well, that I'm already not happy with that.
Yes, yeah, but I still think it's probably a nice way to ease into this. So I'll go ahead and bite the bullet and I'll go number 1 here. Only one current champion, assuming that they all fight at least once by this time next year, only one of them will still be champion in November 1st, 2024.
Wow.
Islam Makhachev is the solo human being that I think will remain a champ.
That's a hot take. I'll give you credit on that. It's not one that I necessarily disagree with either. I have a hard time seeing Volk losing featherweight.
But if he goes in there in January with his current state of affairs, I think Ilya beats him. As sad as it is to have to put it in those terms, I think Ilya could do it in January if Volk does not give himself proper time to reconnect with himself on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I could see that. God, I would hate to see it though.
It would be a disaster. Well,
yeah, hopefully it's delayed or they make like an interim belt or something. But so I'm with you on Pantoja. I'm with you on O'Malley. Leon is kind of tough. I think he'll lose to Shavkat if they fight.
Yes. Well, I think he loses to Colby.
I think he beats Colby, but I think he loses to Shavkat. Yeah, Sean, no way. Absolutely no way. Light heavyweight's interesting. for sure. Um,
My thought process here, they'll strip Jamal of the belt.
Jamal is technically the current champion,
Correct.
so he might not. There's a chance he doesn't fight until then, and then John is expected to retire. What about Wei Li? You think Wei Li is going to lose to Suarez?
So not really, but it was one of them things where it was like, I can see it possibly happening, and I don't want to let it get in the way of my hot take. Because we've seen Wei Li lose to people who we believe are inferior to her. Obviously Rose. Grasso, I think she loses to Tina. It's funny because I think we were talking about this yesterday, and you were like, "You better not have said Grasso's going to beat Tina." I actually said
That's going to be really upset.
I actually said the direct opposite, and then obviously bantamweight doesn't really count. But yeah, so that was, see what I'm saying?
It'll be Blanchfield.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, there is no current champion for it, so somebody's got to be the new champion regardless. But I thought that was an interesting first way to kind of ease into it.
Yeah, honestly, and mine is kind of a microcosm of yours, in my first one at least, because we just mentioned it. I asked if you think Tatiana beats Wei Li. I'm hitching to that wagon. So
there you go.
And like you said, it's because Wei Li, as dominant as she's looked against the vast majority of people she's fought, she still had two fights against Rose, who I think everyone would consider a worse fighter than her. And yes, the first one was a crazy head kick that knocked her out. The second one was largely a wrestling match. And what is Tatiana Suarez best at? Wrestling.
Yeah.
So and I've been gassing her up for a while now. Obviously, she's been on my rising star. She was one of my rising stars picks. And I think she's just destined for it, man. I love Tatiana Suarez, dude.
It's insane because we were both, whenever we did the Rising Stars draft, so attached to Erin Blanchfield will be the next Rising Star woman to win a belt. Tatiana is on a very nice track to pass her.
She could be the next title fight.
Yes.
For Wei Li.
And at minimum, Blanchfield might be in the, like she'll get that bantamweight belt, I'm sure. But like, it's getting real close. The race has gotten a lot closer than it should have been for somebody I took number one because I thought they were so comfortably the best female prospect. But that's a testament to Tatiana. Now, I will say about your take, I don't love it. I don't hate it. So Wei Li is my third least likely person to lose the belt in my head. It went Islam, Volk, Wei Li.
That's why I considered it a hot take. I feel like the vast majority of people are going to expect her to win and win probably pretty easily because Tatiana only has 9 or 10 fights under a belt in her career.
Yes. That's like, it's definitely going to be, it's going to be one that you'll have to sweat out. And I think if you brought that to legitimately any normal UFC fan, they're probably going to be like, yeah, that's definitely a hot take. I think it's a hot take because what's supposed to be the levels here are not even, but Tatiana does have that grappling ability. So I like that take. I'm going to try, I guess I'm going to implement a like a heat check. I'd give that like a 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah. I'm going to work my way up. My hottest take will be my last one.
Okay. So I don't know. You know what? I don't know which is my hottest take of these two. But since we're already talking about champions, I'll bring this one to the table. Sean Strickland, the current champion, will have one defense or more of his title. Like, he will successfully defend his belt at least once.
That is definitely that's a hot take. That's a hot take. Honestly, so if we're doing 1 for 10 on your takes, first one defending champ, I'll give you like an 8 on that.
Okay.
John, probably, I would say closer to 6.5 because I think there are opponents out there that he could beat. It just depends on if they make that fight for him.
I think they give him. I think they give him Izzy, and I think he beats Izzy.
I see. All right. Well, Izzy is in my next.
Okay.
Is in my next take either.
We are accidentally doing awesome at these segues.
Yeah, but no, I think Sean will beat Dricus if they fight. I have a hard time seeing him beating anyone other than that, to be honest. And yeah, so if there was no one in there, I would move it up to that 8 range. But I think because Dricus exists, and I think Sean would beat him, it's less hot than if Dricus wasn't a top 5 middleweight.
It's time to call Darren Till and make him the next champion.
That's crazy.
Oh, man. Okay, so I got a 6.5 on that one because feasibly the guys who could get that call. Okay, I'm cool with that. You want to go ahead and present your next one? You said you got Izzy in it.
Yeah, I was gonna. So we've had 2 fighters recently lost their belts who for a while we were thinking, oh, like maybe could they become the greatest of all time in their weight classes. Neither of them have the belts anymore. And I'm gonna say that neither Kamaru Usman nor Israel Adesanya will ever become champions again. Even if Colby Covington beats Leon Edwards, even if Leon beats Colby, I think they would give Kamaru another try, especially because he got he saved the Abu Dhabi card. And I know they don't usually go with the quadrilogies, but that first Leon fight was so long ago, and the last 2 were so close. I don't think Kamaru has. I think Leon's just the boogeyman, and if Colby does win, I don't think. God, I just don't think he has it in him anymore because the Colby fights were close too.
Yeah. Well, because Colby's almost his boogeyman. Almost. Yeah. Leon has that title, but Colby is certainly the most tried and true Usman kind of equalizer because when they get in the cage, they become very similar fighters. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. And
8.5. Oh, I was.
So the reasoning is because Usman is what's holding me back. I'm right there with you. If it was just Izzy, I'd give it like a 4.
Yeah.
Just because, like, sure, if he gets back in with Sean, he's got a puncher's chance and maybe he won't be so unpredictably predictable, I guess is the only way you can put it. Because Sean cracked that code. But Marty is what messes me up because I truly think that most fighters who are going to take such a sharp decline wouldn't have looked that good on 12 days notice up a weight class against a monster. Like Marty still has all of the gas. We're just worried about his chin. Now, if Colby takes that belt from Leon, like I think he can, Marty wins because what is Colby, unless Colby throws like a physical object at him, he ain't knocking Usman out.
Well, I think with Colby, if Colby wins, he's cleared the mental hurdle of becoming an undisputed champion, which he's been a number 1 contender his whole career. And I think if he breaks into that championship, like, I'm the hunted now, I think that changes how he fights Usman. He'll be more aggressive, I think. But I don't think he wins because I think Leon will win that fight. But either way, Leon is Kamaru's boogeyman, and the next guy who I think will get the belt after this fight is Shavkat, and I don't see anyone beating him.
No,
I don't see anyone beating Shavkat.
Shavkat would be my. So if Colby beats Leon, Kamaru would be my prediction for the end of year champ. But if Leon beats Colby, Shavkat. Because I don't think they're going to turn down the opportunity to do Colby Marty again. But this time, Colby is the champ.
Yeah.
They'll stall Shavkat. They will not care. Especially because there's every chance. Well, never mind. I was about to say, they might just book Usman Colby, um, but I was gonna say about 300, but we're too close to that now. We're flying way too close to the sun. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna give you an 8.5 just because of Marty there. That's the one that messes with me.
Yeah, Izzy, I think after that Strickland fight, it's just something's off.
But
Something in getting knocked out by Pereira. Yeah, he got it back, but it's just something's not right with him.
eventually the eventually his love affair with the middleweight belt has to end,
Yeah,
and getting it back and losing it and whatever. Like cuz now he's been a two-time champ, lost it twice. Does he become a three-time champ in the span of what, 2 years, a year and a half? Probably not. That's
yeah.
just that's a hard thing to keep track of. All right, my final one. There's an attachment to this. I think it'll go from like a 7 to like a 9 if I was guessing. The upcoming, now we're leaving the UFC,
Okay.
but we'll circle back to them. Don't worry. The upcoming MMA bout between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Because they've announced that Jake Paul
Yeah.
is going to be in a PFL super fight against Nate Diaz. Will ultimately be a very good thing for the sport financially. And we'll also see the UFC create their own celebrity box or celebrity MMA event with Logan Paul being the face of it.
I hate that. I think that's the one that you said I was gonna hate.
Yeah.
Uh God, that is I just don't see it. Are you saying
You hate it
completely
because you can
outside
imagine.
of completely outside of what happens in that fight? You think it'll cause the UFC to do something like that?
Yes, I think I would be shocked if they haven't already talked about it with Logan because obviously he's a prime, like his bottles are printed on the UFC mats. He's part of that company now. His brother is supplying something that has drawn big money. I mean, we just saw it with the Dennis Logan Paul and then KSI and Tommy Fury situation that it can draw. Dana's going to see Jake Paul draw over 1 million people in this fight against Nate Diaz in the MMA or in PFL in the octagon. And he's going to say, you know what? I need me a piece of that. Get a hold of Logan. Logan's already under contract with the WWE, who is now owned by TKO. So it's such an easy transition. And then they eventually create a MMA super fight league for celebrities slash influencer slash old guys that they have still contractual rights on, but don't want to let go yet.
I I'm gonna give you an 8.5 on that. And
Okay.
the reason why is because I actually think that is quite likely, but I don't think that they'll have it under the UFC banner. I
Okay.
think it'll be I think if they do something like that, it'll be a different promotion because the UFC is so established as like you know, the best fighters in the world fight in the UFC.
Yes.
Oh.
But you also have to track back. You look at the start of the UFC, what was it?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Dana
But
is the type to embrace that kind of thing for a quick buck. I mean, look at Hasbullah. I love Hasbullah, but he is a merchandise monster for the UFC, and he has nothing to do with fighting. It's just because Dana was like, I love this guy. I'm going to print
yeah,
everything that I can with his face on it. When Dana gets in that, if you can have the UFC branding, even if it's like UFC Super Fight, like you have your UFC cards and you have your UFC Super Fight cards, that's fine. But it'll have those three letters somewhere on
all right. I like it. I do like it. It makes sense. It makes
it.
sense. Very reasonable.
That was one of them that like I felt like it would feel weird hearing it, but the more you process it, it's like, oh wait, oh that makes sense.
Makes sense. It
Yeah,
does make sense.
and they got to have something to go up against Ngannou because he's about to pull some pretty big money for the PFL as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even just in terms of fighting Tyson Fury beforehand,
Yeah,
just yeah.
God,
But
that is a nightmare for the UFC.
yes,
Imagine
totally.
Imagine, I mean, they look at how big the company got after Connor Floyd. I mean, and he let that walk out the door, and now he's fighting Tyson Fury. Ooh. Mm,
He's definitely sick. He's sick for sure.
mm.
But
Dana fired USADA just because, just out of anger.
oh, but
Uh,
my last take, this one I think might ruffle some feathers. I'm gonna say that Usman or Magomedov,
okay.
by the end of his career, higher on the GOAT list than Habib.
Ugh.
Yep.
Okay. The
Yep.
immediate issue.
I'll give my reasoning. I want to hear your reaction first.
So the immediate issue is that Islam, if you replace Usman with Islam, I think it's like a 5, if even. Like, I think Islam is well on his way to being the undisputed greatest fighter of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even think that was a hot take. Like, I thought about it for a second. I was like, I don't know if that's hot enough. Because, like,
I mean, it's well, it depends on how you feel about John Jones, but
well,
John Jones kind of did it all too.
He did, but if Islam can get through it without the picogram madness and the cocaine crazy and the slamming his head into cop cars and beating his wife, like if he can get through it without doing all that, they're going to give it to him just on a clean bill of, personality. So that's my logic, at least as far as that part goes. I don't know. I just get very tied up because I don't know how different the company is going to look in 3 years' time. It's just such a bold prediction for somebody who has not been established yet. That's the part that gets me.
He's not been established in the UFC, but
correct.
I'll break this down. For why I say that.
Sure.
Khabib gets kind of knocked on. 29-0, never lost, but I think 16 of those wins were like cans in Russia.
Yes.
He's still 13-0 in the UFC, 3-time title defender. That's great. He deserves his flowers. Islam has lost a fight before.
Yes.
But since then has been a monster. He's going to be the lightweight title holder for a long time. What neither of those two have, that Usman will have going into the promotion, is a belt in a promotion as big as Bellator.
Yes.
He's 25 years old, is the Bellator lightweight champion, has already beaten some legends, no losses.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to roll right into the UFC at the end of Islam's title reign. And as soon as that belt gets vacated, Usman's taking over, and he's going to be 29, 30 years old and be the UFC lightweight champ and hold it for as long, if not longer, unless he, pulls a Habib and retires early. But I have 100% faith that is how his career plays out.
So, okay, new issue. Obviously, it's predicated on Islam leaving within the next however many years. There's a halfway decent, because I just had to look it up to double check. He is 31 years old. There's a halfway decent chance he's still around in 5, 6, 7 years. And still up there as far as championship quality. If he can come in, Usman, if he can come in to the UFC and basically be the champ without the belt and just clear out the rest of the division until Islam's gone, sure. But he probably shouldn't do that, because then he's just eating wins without getting his defenses. I just don't know that his timeline's going to work out right to where he can be a superstar in the UFC unless Islam moves up.
Well, the thing with this is I imagine the way Habib did it for Islam is what Islam will do for Usman.
Yeah.
Where he'll leave when it's the right time for the next guy to take over. And I think it won't be until, I think Islam has plenty of time. I think if that guy can have a 5-year title reign, that is more than enough time. And by then, Usman he'll still be, in his early prime years.
Mm-hmm. But he's going to be fight old.
Huh?
But he's going to be fight old at that point.
Probably. But it's going to be good. It'll be good fighters.
It will.
I'm
how I feel. I'm going to give you a 9.25 for that because of the timeline issues. He absolutely has the talent to do it. But I don't, because even like, let's say Islam, because Islam is kind of proven to be a little bit more self-fulfilling than Habib was. I don't know that Islam is going to bend the knee as quickly as Habib was. Now, granted, Habib's father passed away, and Habib, was wanted to go to coaching and be a part of that to kind of continue his father's legacy. They might continue to keep Islam in that spot for just until the wheels fall off, basically. And then that screws your timeline up. Or, like if he comes over too quick, then he just has this whole long time where he can't be a champion and he's getting picked at by these other top contenders. And then who's to say whenever he becomes champion, there's not some 16-year-old Dagestani kid that's basically already lined up right now to be the guy after him. Like there's too many variables for me.
I think if Islam's not ready to stop fighting, and Usman's been in the UFC for long enough to the point where he could get a title shot, I think Islam will just go up to 170 and be the champ there.
Maybe.
Which,
and
if that's he probably will be.
Yeah. And if that's how it works out, then I should, like, it would get bumped down on the heat because I agree with you on how talented Usman is. The logistics of the timeline are what's holding me back, which is kind of a sucky way to end that. And that's a me problem. Because I do really like the take. But that's the part that I keep getting, like, that just kind of keeps catching me, if you will.
Yeah. I guess I should have specified higher on the GOAT list than Habib and Islam, since you think that that Islam will eventually be better than Habib as well. But
yes,
how
many? Oh, just a fun little mini conversation we can have. How many more title defenses does Islam need to pass Habib?
He has 2 right now.
Yes.
Because he has Volk twice. Gets Charles, beat Volk twice. I would say 3.
He needs 3 more or just 1 more?
3 more title defenses.
Okay.
I think the O on Habib's record makes a big difference.
Yes. As does Habib being the one training Islam.
Yes, totally. But if Islam can defend the title twice more at least, and I think he'll defend the title 5 more times, 6 more times, however many times he wants. But I think at the very least it'll take 3 more defenses for Islam.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I would say either 2 more extremely dominant title defenses or 3, and you can have 1 or 2 in there that are kind of longer game or a little bit closer. Because like the Volk thing really didn't even help him out all that much because of how close it was the first time. So really, when you're looking at it, this was his first true I'm the king of this class now defense. So yeah, I think if you can get him 2 or 3 more quality, and then the fact that he'll still probably be 33, 34 when that happens, sky's the limit.
Yep.
Cool. I figured that might even be a little bit of a tougher conversation than it was. But if you guys have any hot takes, feel free to leave them in the YouTube section comments. We put our Twitters in the Spotify and Apple Music descriptions, so you can get in and mess with those. But yeah, Alex, you want to go ahead and tell them where they can find us, even though I accidentally already did?
Yeah, like I said, Apple Podcast, YouTube, just look up Ice Mac MMA Podcast, and Spotify. We're all there. We have a pretty solid fight night. We had no fights this weekend. Pretty solid fight night next weekend. So we'll be or the following weekend rather. So we'll be back next week with more. But that's all I got.
Cool. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yep.